Hi, my name is Ricky Everett. On October 14th, 2012, my blood sugar was measured at an astounding 1200, and I slipped into a diabetic coma, which my doctors said there was an 85% chance I'd never come out of. Yet, just a few months later, there I was, running in one of the U.S.'s most difficult marathons, where I finished first in my entire age division, and being declared 100% diabetes-free by a team of medical doctors, all of whom were completely baffled by what they were seeing. They said it just didn't make sense. How could every symptom of my diabetes completely disappear in just 30 days? And they kept saying what happened must have been some sort of divine miracle. Well, I just had to laugh, because while I'm blessed to have taken my blood sugar levels from 1200 to 120 in about 28 days, and I am lucky to have escaped my deadly coma and completely eliminated all of my diabetic symptoms, it didn't happen because of a miracle. Instead, it happened because of the breakthrough research performed by some of America's most well-respected scientists and their startling discovery that the real cause of your diabetes has nothing to do with your pancreas, liver, or even your kidneys, but with a toxic chemical that's floating in your bloodstream right now. And that's responsible for keeping your blood sugar levels high, even when you take medication. Now, inside this short presentation, I'm going to tell you exactly what that hidden culprit is, how it's waging war against your body's insulin production as we speak, and how you can win that war by doing nothing but adding a few 100% natural and inexpensive things to your diet. At first, it will probably sound insane, especially the part about eating lots of bacon, which I'll explain to you in just a second. But once you see the science behind this proven diabetes-reversing protocol, and once you start using the explicit step-by-step instructions that I'll give you right inside this video, I guarantee that you will be absolutely blown away by the speed and completeness with which every single symptom of your diabetes evaporates into thin air. In fact, that's what more than 56,422 other Americans just like you have already achieved by using these simple diabetes-destroying instructions. People like Anthony Reza, who saw his blood sugar levels drop from 400 to 124 in just 18 days. And Chase Pound, who's now been diabetes-free for 6 months. And Natasha Rolfe, who recently wrote to say she hasn't even touched her insulin shots or pills in over a year, thanks to the information inside this video. I'm sure you're anxious to find out the secret that these people already know. So let me go ahead and tell you who I am, what this breakthrough treatment I'm talking about is, and how you can use it to completely eliminate every single symptom of your diabetes in the next 28 days, guaranteed. As mentioned, my name is Ricky Everett. I'm 43 years old, and I've been a professional runner since the age of 18. In that time, I've run in every major marathon you can imagine. I've even set some speed records along the way, and I've been one of the lucky few who can eke out a modest living doing what they love. As a professional athlete, I've always been in incredible shape. In fact, here's a picture of me taken in March of 2011. And because I've spent every month of my life training for marathons, I've also always had an incredibly healthy diet, with no junk food, no sodas, no candy, and very little alcohol. So given all of this, you can understand why I was shocked when on April 24th, 2012, my doctor looked me dead in the eyes and said I had type 2 diabetes. It all happened so fast. I was outside training for my next marathon when I got hit with an incredibly powerful dizzy spell and fainted right on the street. When I came out, I was surrounded by concerned onlookers and then taken by ambulance to the hospital where they performed tests on me. Even though I was alarmed and scared by what had just happened, however, I was also pretty positive it was just dehydration, which is why when the doctor told me that my blood sugar level was a staggering 600 and that I was in danger of slipping into a diabetic coma, I was left absolutely speechless. How is this possible, I asked the doctor. How could someone like me have type 2 diabetes? I eat healthy, barely have a single inch of body fat, and my heart is in fantastic shape. This doesn't make any sense at all. Well, the doctor told me that type 2 diabetes can strike anyone at any time, and that it wasn't at all related to obesity like the media makes it seem. He said that in my case, it looked like my body had developed an immunity to insulin, which meant my cells could no longer absorb the sugars that were in my blood. Then he told me to avoid eating sugars, starches, and carbs, even though I already did that as part of my marathon training, and prescribed me an oral medication that was supposed to help my body break down the glucose inside the bloodstream, along with insulin shots, which I was told I would need to inject inside my body every single day. Well, if you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, you'll understand just how sick I felt as I left the doctor's office. Once you get a diabetes diagnosis, it's as if you've suddenly received a life sentence. From that moment on, you're on an incredibly strict diet, where you're supposed to stop eating pretty much any food that tastes good. You wake up each morning and either stab a long, dripping needle inside your body, or swallow all kinds of big chemical-filled pills, or you do both. Plus, and I know for me this was by far the most terrifying part, all those shots and pills aren't doing anything but keeping your body on life support. They work for a while, but ultimately it's a losing battle, because despite the billions of dollars that go into diabetes research every year, the average diabetic will still die a full 10 years earlier than the average non-diabetic. So in other words, as soon as you hear those words, "you have diabetes," a countdown timer begins running above your head. You're forced to live with the knowledge that you will die a full decade earlier than you should, that you'll be leaving your loved ones alone to fend for themselves in this world, and that you won't be there for many of life's most important moments, from the birthdays of your grandchildren to your silver or golden anniversary with your husband or wife. It's as if the joy is suddenly sucked right out of your life, and it's replaced with a permanent sense of fear. Something that's always just below the surface, keeping you awake at night. It's devastating. At least it was for me, and as my wife, Heather, drove me home from the hospital, I was terrified. But I was also resolute. I made a vow to myself right then and there that even though I'd been diagnosed with diabetes, it wasn't going to stop me from training or competing in marathons. And the very next day, after stabbing myself with my prescribed needle and taking my oral medications, I drove over to the track where I trained and started to run. It was a disaster. I felt short of breath and exhausted just a few laps in. Then I got really lightheaded and nearly fainted again. That's okay, I thought. Things will get better once the medications kick in. It'll be fine. But it wasn't fine. Every time I tried to run, I became weak and lightheaded. And because I couldn't eat the high-energy foods that were essential to training, when I did manage to get in a few solid miles, I was physically exhausted for several days after. Plus, there was something even more alarming happening. My blood sugar simply wasn't going down. Instead, and despite my medications, it was continuing to go up. By June of 2012, my blood sugar was up to 650, and by mid-July, it was at 725. My doctor was incredibly alarmed and told me he didn't know what to do. He kept saying the key was my diet, but that didn't make any sense because I wasn't eating any sugars or starches at all. He kept prescribing me more medications, but the only thing they did was take more money out of my pocket. And when my blood sugar measured an even 1,000 in late September, both my doctor and I were in a massive state of panic. Then it happened. October 14th, 2012. I'd been feeling weak and lightheaded for days, and I woke up with a splitting headache. The last thing I remember was walking into the kitchen for a glass of water. And then, not until October 28th of 2012, did I regain consciousness. As the outside world came flooding back to me, my wife and children tearfully explained that I'd been in a coma for 2 weeks, that the doctors had said I would probably never wake up from it, and that they'd already called all my friends and family to tell them I was going to die. The feeling of horror was overwhelming. How could this be happening to me, I thought? How could my health be going so fast? How do I deal with the fact that I'm about to die? Well, I didn't have any answers to those questions. And even after I was released from the hospital, my doctor warned my family that because my blood sugar wasn't going down, the chances were still incredibly high I'd slip into another coma, and that it could be fatal. Enjoy your time with him, he said. I can't make any guarantees on how long he'll last. It was so devastating, and I felt so weak and helpless, confined to my bed in my room. Friends and family members from across the country were constantly showing up at the house, wanting to pay their final respects to me. It got to the point where I just wanted to die already. I was so tired of the children, grandchildren, and childhood best friends all showing up and sobbing and saying they were so sorry. I'd been a competitor my entire life, and I hated being treated like such a weak and helpless man. So I thought maybe it was time to accept that I was going to die early, just like virtually every single person who has type 2 diabetes does. But what kind of example would I set for my children and grandchildren if I gave up on life? I've spent my whole life trying to win, I thought. Do I really want my final moments of life to be defined by quitting? The answer was obvious to me. No. And so, instead of just rolling over and dying, I decided to use every ounce of strength I had left to fight back against this devastating disease. I asked my wife to bring me my laptop, and I began researching what really causes diabetes, and whether or not there wasn't some kind of alternative treatment out there that could help with my blood sugar issues. It was really a struggle. I was so tired and exhausted that I frequently needed to take breaks or passed out while doing my research. But I dug deep, and I forced myself to continue fighting. And on November 25th, 2012, almost a month exactly since I first emerged from my diabetic coma, I discovered something that would ultimately not only save my life, but the lives of more than 56,000 other diabetics and pre-diabetics just like me. It happened while I was poring through the private medical archives of one of Florida's top universities, which a friend had given me access to. This database contained literally thousands of published articles, papers, studies, and findings, and for the most part, everything I'd been finding was pretty standard stuff that didn't help. But on that day in late November, right before Thanksgiving, a just-published scientific study caught my eye. It was titled Free Fatty Acids and Insulin Resistance in Diabetics, and as I clicked the link and began to read what was inside, I was completely blown away. This study had been conducted by several of the top researchers and biologists in the world, and inside they proposed a radical new theory as to what the real cause of diabetes was, something unlike anything I'd ever heard of before. They said that an overload of something called free fatty acids is the real culprit behind insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Apparently, this study said anyone can have an FFA's overload, even a skinny and seemingly healthy guy like me. And once those free fatty acids start to invade your body, they break into your bloodstream, penetrate your vessels, and flood your cells. When that happens, your cells can no longer absorb glucose like they're supposed to, which leads to insulin resistance and rising blood sugar levels. And even worse, the study said that these FFAs also attack your pancreas and liver, stopping them from producing insulin. It was pretty shocking, and it flew in the face of everything people like you or me have ever been told about our disease. I mean, we already know that insulin problems define diabetes, but our doctors, the drug manufacturers, and even the media have always said there was nothing we can do to permanently fix our insulin production or reverse our insulin resistance. Instead, we've been told continuously that our only option is to stab ourselves with insulin shots, or spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars per year on pills, or follow incredibly strict diets that leave us starving while never actually curing our diabetes at all. And as I reread the study again and again, I became obsessed with a single, simple thought. If I could remove these free fatty acids in my body, wouldn't it reverse my insulin resistance, increase my insulin production, and completely eliminate my diabetes? I couldn't think of any reason why this wouldn't be the case. And so I began searching for all the scientific literature I could find about how to destroy free fatty acids. It was a bit discouraging at first. While there was a ton of information out there about FFAs in general, I was having a lot of trouble finding any possible methods for how to actually destroy them. In fact, after more than 2 weeks of research, the only solution to destroying FFAs in the body that I'd discovered was a drug called Acipamax. I first came across this drug in a published paper called Overnight Lowering of Free Fatty Acids with Acipamax Improves Insulin Resistance and Glucose Tolerance in Diabetic and Non-Diabetic Subjects. As I kept researching, I found numerous other studies and papers linking the drug to a decrease in insulin resistance, and volumes of scientific research proving the drug did indeed lower FFA levels and even improved insulin production. And I thought to myself, boy, this is easy. I've got my solution. Well, yeah, that was a bit premature, because as I continued researching, I realized that there were some major problems with the drug. For one thing, it came with very scary side effects, including heart palpitations, liver failure, and gastrointestinal disturbances. And for another, you can't even get the drug in the U.S. It's only available in Europe as an alternative treatment. So, despite my initial excitement, it seemed to me that I'd hit another dead end and I wanted to give up. And I probably would have quit right then and there if I hadn't remembered the promise I made to myself. So instead, I kept pushing forward. I wrote down all the names of the scientists who were listed as authors on the Acipamax studies I'd found, and I scoured the web for their contact information. For every scientist whose email address I was able to find, I wrote them this long email explaining who I was, how close to dying I was, and the reason why I believed this drug called Acipamax could save my life. For several days I waited without hearing back from anyone, and I thought maybe I was wasting my time. But then, on December 4th, 2012, I finally got the phone call I'd been looking for. The man on the other end of the phone was named Joseph Borden, and he was the lead researcher on the most comprehensive Acipamax study ever published. Joseph said he'd been moved by my email and that his father had also suffered from diabetes. Then he asked what he could do to help me. I quickly told Joseph all about the research I'd been doing and how I believed that Acipamax could save my life. Is there any way I can get my hands on this drug, I asked. I don't need to take it forever, but maybe I could at least lower my blood sugar levels temporarily. I know it has side effects. Seeing as the alternative is dying, I'm willing to take my chances. Well, Joseph's reply made my heart drop to the floor. There's simply no way for anyone in the U.S. to get Asipamox, he said. I'm sorry. I just wanted to scream. It was so frustrating to constantly have my hopes dashed, and it felt like my fight against diabetes was a never-ending series of setbacks. Completely dejected, with tears streaming down my face, I thanked Joseph for his time and started to hang up the phone. Wait, I heard the voice on the other end of the line say suddenly. Ricky, are you still there? Don't hang up yet. I wasn't finished. There may be another way. And you better believe I yanked that phone receiver right back to my ear when I heard that. Ever since I discovered Asipamox's dangerous side effects, I've been doing a lot of research on alternatives, Joseph began. Just like you, I thought that this drug could save millions of lives, if only it were safe. So I started investigating what causes those Asipamox side effects in the first place. And what I realized is that really these side effects are caused by the different chemicals that are inside the drug itself. You see, the most active ingredient in Asipamox is just a synthetic version of a vitamin called niacin. You may have already heard of niacin before. It's nothing exotic, but you can buy a supplement containing it at any health store. It's also present in tons of common foods we eat, including stuff like chicken, tuna, broccoli, peanuts, asparagus, coffee, bell peppers, and even bacon. Niacin is completely safe. But unfortunately, using this vitamin by itself isn't enough to destroy the free fatty acids that are inside of your body, or to cure your insulin resistance, or to naturally increase your insulin production. That's where a drug like Asipamox comes in. The manufacturer combines synthetic niacin with several other chemicals. Together, they allow the vitamin to be absorbed into the body and transported to your insulin-producing organs. Unfortunately, however, those other chemicals are also unnatural and dangerous. They come with a lot of health risks, which is why Asipamox is illegal in the U.S. So anyway, as I researched all of this, I started being bothered by what seemed like a pretty simple question. Shouldn't there be a natural and safer way to allow for the niacin to be absorbed into your bloodstream and then transported to your liver and pancreas? In other words, just because the chemicals inside Asipamox are dangerous, who says there aren't other options? So I began working pretty much nonstop, trying to find a safe and organic alternative to the drug. Something that would allow niacin to be easily absorbed into your body, then rapidly transport it to your liver and pancreas, where it would flush out those deadly FFAs that are stopping your insulin production. Over the past 2 years, I've combined niacin with literally hundreds of different vitamins, enzymes, minerals, and natural acids, and the overwhelming majority of them simply didn't work. But about a month ago, my research team did find a pretty promising treatment protocol, something we're now ready to begin testing on humans. That's where you come in, Ricky, and honestly, it's part of the real reason I called. Given that your FFA levels are off the chart, your insulin production is completely shot, and your blood sugar levels are so incredibly high, I'm thinking that if the treatment we've created worked for you, the evidence would be pretty overwhelming that it could work for anyone. So, I guess what I'm asking, Ricky, is if you'd like to make yourself a human test subject for us. I can promise you right now that the treatment method I'm talking about is completely natural and there won't be any side effects or anything like that, but I can't promise you it will work. Because while this method has been shown to be highly effective in our clinical tests, there's a big difference between a lab rat and a human. Still, I don't think you have much to lose here. What's going to happen if you don't try this? You'll certainly be a diabetic, and in all probability, you'll die. So why not give this a shot? I can have my assistant email you the treatment protocol right now, along with a non-disclosure agreement for you to sign. What do you say? Well, Joseph barely finished speaking before I was saying yes. It was the first promising solution to my blood sugar problem I'd come across in months of researching. And it had extensive scientific research behind it. And it was completely safe and natural. So Joseph was right. Why wouldn't I give it a try? Absolutely, I told the scientist. Send me the treatment details and I'll get started immediately. The conversation I just shared with you took place on December 4th, 2012. When I took my blood sugar reading that morning, my levels were dangerously close to 1,000. Yet just 2 months later, on February 4th, 2013, there I was, running in one of Florida's most prestigious marathons, where I finished first in my entire age division, with a blood sugar reading of 120, and with a body that showed absolutely zero signs of having diabetes. My friends, my family, and my doctor all thought it was an absolute miracle. And when I told my story to the other competitors at the marathon, they all thought I was joking or messing with them. To be honest, I completely understood why they didn't believe me, because if I hadn't been there and lived through this, I would find my story hard to believe too. But it really happened, and what made it all possible was the scientific research of Joseph Borden. You see, the treatment protocol that Joseph sent me was really more like a guide than anything else. Inside of it, I was given a simple list of fruits, meats, and vegetables with high levels of niacin, and a second list with the foods, minerals, and supplements that contain the chemicals needed to force my body to absorb that niacin and transport it to my insulin-producing organs. By combining everything in the special way that Joseph showed me inside the treatment plan, I was able to create a special reaction inside my body. A reaction where the niacin bonded with the free fatty acids inside my pancreas and liver, then dissolved those FFAs into microscopic levels so my body could flush them from my system. And once those FFAs were gone, my insulin production would return to normal, and I'd no longer be insulin resistant. Really, the science behind it was pretty simple. FFAs have been shown to cause insulin resistance and stop insulin production. Niacin has been shown to kill FFAs, but only if it gets absorbed into your body and reaches your insulin-producing organs. You do that by combining the niacin with some additional vitamins, minerals, and enzymes, things that act like organic transporters in your body. And once those transporters have delivered the niacin to your pancreas and liver, it destroys those FFAs. But at the same time, I was a bit skeptical about the whole treatment protocol. Half the stuff I need to add to my diet is already in my own house right now, I thought, and the other half will only cost like $14 at the grocery store. How could this possibly work? But again, it's not like I had any other options. So I asked my wife to stop by the grocery store on the way home and grab the items that I needed. And that night I started following the guide that Joseph's team of scientists had provided me with. 3 days in, the treatment didn't seem to be working. The only thing I noticed was that I had a little more energy, and I figured that could probably be just because I'd slept a little more soundly than usual. Still, what did I have to lose? So I stuck with it for a few more days, and that's when things began to happen very, very fast. On the 6th day of using Joseph's treatment protocol, I took my morning reading, and I was shocked when I saw that it said 800. Now, obviously, 800 is still dangerously high, but it was also about 200 points lower than any reading I'd had in months. And that 200-point drop was nothing compared to what I'd see in the following 2 weeks. On day 10 of the program, my blood sugar went down to 665. On day 15, it was at 415. On day 21, it was at a miraculous 220. And by the 28th day of using Joseph's guide, I was in absolute tears as I took my morning reading and saw the numbers 110 blinking on the screen. I felt as if my life sentence had been suddenly lifted. Plus, the lower blood sugar levels were just the tip of the iceberg. Over that same month, all the energy I'd been missing came flooding back to me. It was incredible. I just wasn't fatigued or tired at all. In fact, I felt so good that just 21 days into using Joseph's treatment protocol, I was even able to go running again. I ran for 3.5 miles, and I didn't stop smiling the entire time. All I could think about was that I had my life back, and that I had Joseph to thank for it. Speaking of the scientist, you'd better believe he was just as ecstatic about the results as I was. He called me every single day to check in and even sent one of his scientific colleagues out to my house to verify the results. He called it his greatest accomplishment and began giving the same treatment protocol I was using to dozens, then hundreds of additional diabetics and pre-diabetics. Every single person who used his diabetic cure saw their symptoms disappear in a matter of weeks, often in as little as 14 days. And it didn't seem to matter if they'd been suffering from the disease for 25 years or had just been diagnosed. Every single sign and symptom of their diabetes just vanished into thin air after they used this protocol. This is going to save so many lives, I told Joseph, and he agreed. But then something horrible happened. Rumors of this strange and completely natural diabetes cure started reaching the ears of the wrong people, including several of the country's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers. Within hours, an army of lawyers had descended upon the small university town where Joseph lived and worked, threatening to sue the living daylights out of everyone they could find: Joseph, his colleagues, the university, even the janitor who cleaned the research labs. The lawyers said that even though Joseph's protocol was completely natural and wasn't a medication, They would figure out a way to bankrupt both him and his university if they shared this treatment with another human being. On top of that, the lawyers also sent out letters to all of the country's leading scientific journals. In it, they said if anyone dared to publish Joseph's findings, they could expect to have $1 million lawsuit on their hands. It was such an insanely evil reaction that I just didn't understand. Why are they trying to stop this cure from reaching the public, I asked Joseph. Why don't they want to help save people's lives? Depressed and defeated, the scientist just shook his head. Think about it, Ricky, he said. Diabetes is a $245 billion per year industry, and the average diabetic is worth more than $14,000 per year to these companies. Of course they don't want this to reach the public. It would cost them $250 billion in lost profits. I should have known this would happen. It's over. Well, now it was my turn to be the savior. No, I told the dejected scientist, it's far from over. Your treatment saved my life, and it can save the lives of millions of others just like me. Parents, grandparents, and even innocent young children can all live longer, healthier lives because of this. There are more than 100 million diabetics and pre-diabetics in the U.S., and the average diabetic dies 10 years earlier than the average non-diabetic. So, do the math. The cure you discovered can restore more than 1 billion years of life to people who are already alive and suffering at this very moment. Could you live with yourself if you didn't give people that opportunity? Because I know I sure couldn't. Well, that floored Joseph, because I don't think he'd ever thought about curing diabetes in those terms before. But once he did, he agreed that he had a moral obligation to get his diabetes protocol to as many people as he possibly could, regardless of the risks. So I began working with Joseph to organize his cure into a simple, easy-to-follow digital guide, and then convinced him to upload the entire diabetes reversing protocol directly onto this website so that anyone who wanted could have instant access.
We're calling this guide Diabetes Destroyed, the quick and simple way to fixing your blood sugar.
And inside, you'll be given the entire diabetes reversing protocol discovered by Joseph Borden and his team of expert researchers. This treatment plan is based on cutting-edge scientific discoveries and research, but everything has been organized into an easy-to-follow guide that anyone can use.
Inside Diabetes Destroyed, you'll be given a complete list of nice and rich fruits, meats, and vegetables that are essential to healing your insulin production.
And the second list of foods, minerals, and supplements that contain the organic chemicals your body needs to absorb this niacin and transport it to your insulin-producing organs. Then, you simply combine everything in the way you're shown inside the guide. And the result is the total destruction of the free fatty acids that have been poisoning your body. The key to why this works is that when you deliver niacin to your pancreas and liver in the very specific way we tell you to, it then dissolves those FFAs, eliminating them from your organs, your cells, and even your bloodstream. And once that happens, two things occur. First, your vital organs can once again produce insulin because there are no FFAs there to stop them. And second, your cells are no longer saturated with these FFAs, which means they're able to once again absorb the insulin your body is now producing.
So in other words, by simply combining the different foods, minerals, and vitamins you'll be given inside Diabetes Destroyed, you can rapidly restore your insulin production to non-diabetic levels while entirely reversing your insulin resistance. And as a result, you'll see every single symptom of your diabetes permanently disappear within just 28 days of using the Diabetes Destroyed treatment protocol.
Plus, because this program allows you to destroy your entire buildup of FFAs in those 4 short weeks, by the time you finish, you'll never need to force another dripping insulin shot or side-affected medication inside your body again. And you'll finally be able to enjoy all those foods you love, but that you thought were banned from you forever. From juicy steaks to French fries, birthday cake to mashed potatoes, once your insulin production is normal, you can eat all of this stuff with no problems. Though, of course, it's always a good thing to eat in moderation.
To date, more than 56,422 Americans just like you have already used Diabetes Destroyed to lower their blood sugar levels, regain their energy, and become completely diabetes-free.
Jan Boer from Wilmington, Delaware writes, "When I first started watching your presentation, I was very skeptical. It just didn't seem possible that someone could cure their diabetes in 28 days, especially without the use of medications. But because my husband's situation was desperate, I figured there was no harm in trying this. So I ordered your guide, gave it to him, and waited to see what would happen. Well, let me tell you, I was absolutely amazed by the results. Within 2 weeks, his blood sugar went from a 400 to a 140. And even more impressively, it stayed between 140 and 110 ever since, even though it's been months since he used your guide. You've healed my husband, and we're both forever grateful. Mario Vaughn of Tacoma, Washington recently wrote to say, I finally had to tell my doctor to stop running tests on me. He just couldn't believe that my diabetes was gone, even after he saw my blood sugar levels and the lab results with his own eyes. That was 9 months ago, and I haven't had a single symptom of my diabetes since, even though I stopped taking my medications right at the end of your 28-day program. Here's to you. Thanks for saving my life and confusing the heck out of my doctor.
Carl Masterson of Rogers, Arkansas says, Diabetes Destroyed has given me my life back. Before I discovered your program, I was a slave to my disease. Every morning I'd force another needle into my skin, check my blood sugar levels, and feel exhausted as I struggled to make it through the day.
Since starting your program, however, everything's changed. I haven't had an insulin shot in more than 5 months, and my doctor has even gone so far as to declare me diabetes-free. My feelings of gratitude are overwhelming, and I hope you'll accept my sincerest praise. And Jim Pape of Pine Forest, Florida says, I was really affected by what you mentioned in the video, the part about how diabetics die 10 years sooner than non-diabetics. A decade is a whole lot of time, especially once you get to be in your 60s. And I started thinking to myself, if I don't do something, I'm going to miss out on several years I could be spending with my grandchildren. I'll never get to see them graduate high school or get their first job or even get married. Instead, I'll be gone. So I did go ahead and try out your program, and that turned out to be one of the wisest decisions I've ever made. Within just 28 days, every single sign of my diabetes had vanished, just like you said it would. It's a year later, and I'm still diabetes-free. Thank you for giving me back a decade of precious time I can spend with my grandchildren.
Now, those are just a few of the thousands of thank you notes Joseph and I receive every month from people who got their lives back with Diabetes Destroyed.
They tell us how happy they are to no longer depend on painful insulin shots each morning, how free they feel now, how they don't need to check their blood sugar levels constantly or worry about if what they're eating is okay. And now they feel a very profound sense of relief when they realize that, statistically, they've reclaimed a staggering 10 years of their lives. Given the extensively documented results we're seeing with this program, along with the fundamentally sound science behind it, you can probably guess why both Joseph and I believe that this is one of the most important medical discoveries in the last 2 centuries.
Diabetes Destroyed is 100% natural, incredibly simple to use, and it reverses every single sign or symptom of your diabetes in just 4 weeks.
And there's just nothing else like this treatment protocol in existence. I mean, yes, of course you could keep taking those oral medications you've been prescribed, or stabbing yourself with insulin shots day after day, but those medications all come with severe side effects, everything from nausea to low energy, kidney damage, to high cholesterol. They cost you between $600 and $1,300 per year in copays and doctor visits, up to $13,000 in out-of-pocket expenses in the next 10 years. And none of them actually cure your diabetes. They just give you another day on life support. I guess another alternative would be to start following an ultra-strict diet. But if you choose to do this, you will constantly see a massive red X slashed across almost every food you want to eat but can't. You'll always be limiting starch, limiting carbs, limiting sugars, and an ultra-strict diet isn't going to destroy the free fatty acids that stop insulin production and create insulin resistance. Those FFAs are inside you no matter what you weigh or what you eat, and even 3 salads a day for 10 years aren't going to make them go away. I don't know about you, but none of those options seem like real choices at all, especially when there's a safe, natural, and side effect-free diabetes treatment protocol right in front of you. Something that only costs an extra $14 total in groceries. And that completely eliminates every single symptom or sign of your diabetes in 4 weeks or less, guaranteed.
When you stop to consider all of this, it should be clear why originally I told Joseph we should charge a minimum of $289 for Diabetes Destroyed.
That's less than what it will cost you to see one specialist. Way less than what it will cost you in copay for your medications over the coming months. And unlike those medications, diets, or other Band-Aid approaches,
Diabetes Destroyed addresses your diabetes right at the source, healing your insulin production and mercilessly destroying the disease in a matter of weeks.
So really, asking people to pay $289 for a permanent diabetes cure seems incredibly reasonable when you think about it, right? But here's the thing. As I already mentioned, I believe Joseph and I have a moral duty to get this cure to as many people as possible. Because it doesn't matter whether it's you who suffers from type 2 diabetes, or your spouse, your parent, your child, or a dear friend. Without this treatment, there is a very real chance that any diabetic or pre-diabetic out there will suffer greatly and die early. 10 years taken off of your life is a staggeringly large amount of time. I mean, just think about everything that happened to you between the ages of 20 and 30. Think about all the memories you made, the relationships you built, the great things you accomplished. Now imagine what it would feel like if all that were suddenly and cruelly taken, snatched away from you by the cruel hands of diabetes. It doesn't have to be this way. All you need is the treatment protocol that I'm sharing with you right now. And given that this is a matter of life and death, there's simply no chance that either Joseph or I could live with ourselves if we made this treatment too costly for you to afford. So instead, we're going to make a deal with you.
If you'll make the commitment to completely eliminate your diabetes in the next 4 weeks, then we won't ask you to pay $289 or $189 or even $89 for Diabetes Destroyed.
Instead, you'll get the entire program, the food, vitamins, and mineral lists, the step-by-step instructions on how to combine them, and the 28-day schedule you need to follow for just $39. To get started now, simply click the yellow button you see right below this video. That button leads you to our 100% secure checkout page.
Then, as soon as you're finished, you'll be given instant access to the entire Diabetes Destroyed program, the food lists, the combination instructions, the treatment schedule, everything.
You'll be able to view the entire treatment plan right from your computer, on your phone, or your tablet. And you can also download or print the guide as many times as you'd like, which is great for sharing with a friend or family member. In literally 120 seconds from right now, you or your loved one will be less than a month away from curing your diabetes forever. There won't be any more expensive prescription medications or painful insulin injections. There won't be any more anxious daily readings where you hope your blood sugar levels are at least okay. And there won't be any more days of low energy, frequent thirst, or insatiable hunger for foods you aren't even allowed to eat. Instead, all you need to do is click that yellow button you see below this video, and diabetes is as good as gone.
But if that's not a compelling enough reason to get your instant access to Diabetes Destroyed right now, this next part should really help you get off the fence and on with your journey of healing. You see, because I know just how vital it is for you to get your hands on Diabetes Destroyed today, and because I've seen firsthand the 56,000 and more lives this has already saved, including my own, I know it's imperative we do everything possible to make your investment the easiest decision of your life. So to make sure you have no reason not to say yes to the Diabetes Destroyed treatment protocol today, Joseph and I have decided to cover the entire guide with a full 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. Here's how it works. First, you get your instant access to the Diabetes Destroyed protocol by clicking the yellow button you see below this video.
Then, take a look at the food, vitamin, and supplements list that are inside this guide, follow the combination instructions and the 28-day schedule we give you, and watch in amazement as every symptom or sign of your diabetes rapidly disappears. Doing exactly this has helped more than 56,000 Americans to beat their diabetes and reclaim their health. And we're 100% positive it will work for you.
But even though we're supremely confident that you will cure your diabetes with this treatment protocol, you'll still get a full 2 months to decide whether or not Diabetes Destroyed is right for you.
And if you change your mind about this investment for any reason over those next 60 days, just send an email to the address we'll give you inside the guide, and Joseph and I will instantly refund your entire investment with 0 questions asked. In other words, there's simply 0 risk involved on your end, and you can try this total diabetes-destroying cure without any worries at all. It's guaranteed to work. And you have a full 60 days to decide if you're happy with the investment. If you're ready to get started with this guide, though, you need to act now. Even as you watch, the crony lawyers of America's biggest pharmaceutical companies are preparing to take us to court. And even though Joseph and I have been more or less giving them the finger and ignoring their threats for several months now, the law is the law, which means that whenever their frivolous lawsuit does get processed by the courts, we will be forced to take this website down, at least until the trial is over, which could take years. So there's simply not time to waste. Ultimately, the choice is yours. This presentation is now nearly finished, and you could just let it end and go on with your day. If that's what you decide to do, Joseph and I both wish you all the luck in the world. We hope that one day another diabetes cure is discovered, and that Big Pharma decides to share it with you, even though it will mean giving up their $245 billion per year in profits. Personally, I don't think the chances of that happening are very high, and I think it's much more likely that instead you'll end up continuing to be dependent on your medications for the rest of your life. But again, that's your choice. I just hate to think what will happen in a week from now, as you're staring at another dripping syringe or popping another side effect-filled pill, you change your mind and return to this website only to find that it's too late and this video has already been taken down. I don't want you to kick yourself for not taking action right now, especially when the investment is so small and you have a full 2 months to try before you buy.
And because of this, it seems pretty clear to me that there's really only one option here, which is to make the smart decision and get diabetes destroyed right now by clicking the yellow button you see below this video.
Start following the simple guide you'll find inside and heal your insulin production while curing your insulin resistance in the next 28 days. Then start enjoying the foods you love again and smile to yourself as you throw your syringes and medication bottles in the trash forever. This presentation is now finished, and if you come back later, there's a very real chance this website will already be taken down. Don't let the pharma drug cartels win. Click the yellow button you see below this video right now, and let's get you healed. This has been Ricky Everett, and I thank you for listening to my story. I hope to hear your success story soon. Sincerely, Ricky Everett. Hey, still here? I bet you probably have some questions based on the presentation you just saw, right? Don't worry, that's actually pretty common. And to help clear things up for you, I'll go ahead and answer some of the most frequently asked questions Joseph and I get asked right now. 1. Why don't mainstream diabetes drugs actually cure the disease? Traditional diabetes medications have all been focused on the Band-Aid approach to treating your disease. In other words, they either give you a temporary insulin boost or they break up some of the excess sugar in your bloodstream. In both instances, as soon as your medicine wears off, you need to take it again. As a result, if you continue to use insulin shots or oral medications, you'll be a slave to those costly prescription drugs forever.
2. How is Diabetes Destroyed able to permanently reverse my diabetes? By taking the unique combination of foods, vitamins, and minerals you're given inside the Diabetes Destroyed program, you'll be able to destroy the free fatty acids that are currently clogging your liver, kidneys, and even your individual cells.
These FFAs are what stop insulin production in your organs, and they're what cause your cells to be unable to absorb sugar, which is what leads to your insulin resistance. So, by simply following the steps you're provided inside this guide, you can permanently destroy those FFAs and cure your diabetes forever. 3. Why have I never heard about this before? The tragic truth is that diabetes is a $245 billion per year industry. And as Joseph and I sadly saw firsthand, the pharmaceuticals who sell mainstream diabetes treatments do not want you finding a cure.
They know that if you find out about the Diabetes Destroyed protocol, you'll become another former customer that they've lost forever.
And by the time 1 million people used this program, they'd be losing more than $14 billion in profits. As you can guess, that terrifies them, and it's why they're doing everything they can to take this website down. 4. How long will it really take for me to get results? Obviously, it varies, but typically you will see all symptoms of your diabetes completely gone within 28 days. Sometimes it does happen a little more quickly than that, though, so don't be alarmed if you see your blood sugar levels go back to normal in the first 7 to 14 days. 5. Does this only work for type 2 diabetes? The culprit in prediabetes, type 1 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes is always insulin. Either your body isn't producing enough insulin, or your cells are rejecting the insulin your body does produce, making you resistant.
Diabetes Destroyed fixes those insulin issues, which makes it effective for both prediabetics and both type 1 and type 2 diabetics. 6. What exactly is included inside the Diabetes Destroyed treatment protocol again? Inside the Diabetes Destroyed protocol, you'll be given the complete list of niacin-rich fruits, meats, and vegetables that are essential to healing your insulin production.
And a second list of the foods, minerals, and supplements that contain the organic chemicals your body needs to absorb this niacin and transport it to your insulin-producing organs. Then you simply combine everything in the way you're shown inside the guide. And the result is the total destruction of the free fatty acids that have been poisoning your body. Once those FFAs are gone, your insulin production and resistance problems are gone too, and your diabetes disappears forever. 7. What are the terms on that guarantee you mentioned again? It's a full 100% 60-day money-back guarantee. What that means is you'll have a full 2 months to use this treatment protocol for yourself or to share it with your friends and loved ones who suffer from diabetes. Joseph and I guarantee that once you use this guide, you'll be able to reverse every symptom of your diabetes in just 28 days. But even though it only takes a month max to get your life, your freedom, and your health back, we're still giving you a full 60 days to decide if you're happy with the treatment protocol. And if, for any reason, you're not, you simply send an email to the address you're given inside the guide, and we'll instantly refund your entire investment with no hassles. 8. Okay, I'm ready to try this. What now? Just click the yellow button you see below this video, and you'll get instant, risk-free access to the entire program. You could be using it in 60 seconds from now, and free of your diabetes in as little as 2 weeks from today. So go ahead and get started now.